Welcome to Wednesday Night Live. I'm John Laspina, Carnivore teacher. Tonight we're going to talk about how to navigate social events on the carnivore diet and hear how our guests do it. I'll tell you how I do it. Before we get started, let's go around clockwise here. We'll start with Rick if he pops back into the screen. Rick,
I'm
you're
here.
first,
I'm just
my
dealing
friend.
with Milton.
Tell us who you and your cat are, and we'll go around and introduce ourselves.
I'm Rick, otherwise known as the 40-year carnivore. I've been carnivore since 1983, and this little black monster is Milton the kitten. He's like somewhere between 1 and 2 months old, and if I get cut off, you see my video go off, that means that he's been playing with the cord again. So I'm trying to keep him happy. I found this cat toy, which by some weird coincidence says Pringles. I don't know what that's all about, but you know, what do you expect from the dollar store? But anyway, yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I guess that's about as social as we get around here, is trying to keep the cat tame when Kitty misbehaves and we got to use the newspaper. So that's what's happening here. Ow.
All right.
And I'm Christy, and my channel is Meeting Wellness. I'm a teacher in Southern California. I just got done teaching my 31 fifth graders and attending a staff meeting, and now I'm here in night school. So I guess I love school in general.
Bad cat.
Cami.
Hi, I am Cami. I live in Ohio. I've been carnivore for about 18, 19 months. I was a stay-at-home mom, but now I drive for an Amish guy doing construction. So I'm like out there with the big construction machines having fun. It's interesting, but it's fun to be able to get on here. My channel is Last Day of Normal.
Okay.
And I'm Nia from Nia's Way on YouTube, and always glad to be here to discuss interesting carnivore topics. And I just hit my 1 year on my second try here, my second round in July. So happy to be here.
Great. Thanks for coming. And I'm a carnivore teacher, and I have a YouTube channel with the same name. And I didn't start out carnivore. A lot of people are talking about starting carnivore and going cold turkey, and a lot of people do that. And many people have problems, and they sometimes give up because of the side effects or the withdrawal symptoms. And so a lot of influencers, I included, encourage people to take it slowly and to wean down, just like any change can be drastic to the body. And so I encourage people on my channel to take it slowly and drop things out slowly, and I explain how to do that. That's how I did it, but I didn't do it in a planned way. I did it I stumbled across it very slowly, did it very slowly, and had a lot of great success, a lot of benefits. And that's why I think a lot of us are here and making channels and coming on YouTube, because we just would like to share and pay it forward how well we feel and the health benefits. So tonight we're going to talk about some of the difficulties that some of us experience on carnivore. I don't find it difficult at all, but I can see the difficulty with a lot of people. And that is when you're going to a social event, whether it's a birthday party or just meeting somebody out for a meal in a restaurant, or it's a holiday event. It could be Thanksgiving, it could be Christmas, it could be Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, it could be a holiday event. Food is often the center of the event, and food is often the center of many gatherings. If you're just meeting at a friend's house, people bring dishes. All right, how do we navigate that when we are only eating animal products as carnivores? And that's the topic tonight. So I'll go last. Let's start with the unique perspective of Rick from Miami, who's been a carnivore for 40 years. And I don't think he has a problem with this, but maybe you can think back to the 41 years ago. I don't know. Tell us how you, if you're in any social gatherings now, how do you talk to people when they say, "What are you eating?" or whatever?
Well, 41 years ago, I was a teenager. Before that, it was elementary school. Stop that, you little monster. I got a little cat issue here. We may have to use a newspaper. Anyway, calm down. One of the biggest problems that I had is that whenever there was a get together and they had what they consider to be a treat, it wasn't really anything I wanted to eat. So I was always thinking, where's the meat? Where's the cheese? Where's the good stuff? Don't give me that bread. Don't give me those nasty chips or any of that stuff. But, sometimes we'd have picnics. We've had friends and family that had picnics. And one thing that they would do, we go to the park, and the park had a canal and it had a lake. So that was kind of nice because then if they gave me something I didn't like, I could go over to the lake or the canal and here, ducky, 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 and give it to the duckies. And, a lot of times they'd have candy or cake or whatever. Like you said, people, they have their birthdays and they're going to have cake. And then they have those family get-togethers and family reunions and anniversaries. Every time there's an anniversary, they invite all the families. Of course, there's cake and cookies and bread and all that stuff. And for a regular picnic, it's always sandwiches. And, sandwiches aren't that bad. I actually enjoyed part of the sandwich. If they had, let's say, a ham sandwich, meatball sandwich, bologna sandwich, there were some good sandwiches. Maybe I'd have a piece of bread, but most of the time I just saved that for the ducks and then just eat the meat. I would eat sometimes the fruits or vegetables like a tomato or something. I didn't really like it, but that wasn't too bad. So as a kid, most of the time, a lot of the kids, they didn't want to be around me anyway because I was a kid that always got picked last. So if we had some kind of get together, I usually wasn't invited. So it really wasn't much of a problem. Now, when I got older and I went on the carnivore diet, it was pretty much the same thing. Now, I do have good friends. There's people that I go to this day. We have a barbecue at their house, and they'll have all kinds of stuff. They'll have hamburgers or steak or fish or duck or whatever we have, and that's a good part. Then they'll also have the potatoes, the mashed potatoes or the fried potatoes. When we have get-togethers at my house, I also have a popcorn machine, so I can make popcorn because I know they love popcorn. And we'll make fried plantains. That'll be the fries. I don't really, they're okay, but they're nothing that, they don't excite me. If I have a choice between steak or even hamburger, why would I waste my valuable stomach space on stuff like, fries or salad or any of that stuff? Leave that for everybody else. Now, in my case, this actually is an advantage because when I get together with my friends, I'm not going to be messing with their favorite foods. The potatoes, the desserts, the sweet potatoes. A lot of people I know love sweet potatoes. They love their spices. They love their breads. And I don't touch any of that. I would never even think about eating that stuff. Now, when it comes to the meat, that's where I can really clean up. So what we do when we have a get-together, picnic, or barbecue, I'm usually the one that's put on the barbecue pit. And, women are usually in the kitchen. They're doing the baking. They're putting together the desserts. I'm at the barbecue pit. And then when we eat, a lot of times while I'm cooking, I'll eat a little bit at a time. I want to make sure the meat is good. So I always taste test everything. I'll cut pieces off of steaks and try it and then put it into the warmer or put it into the cold plate. And then by the time that we eat, I've already probably had half the food I'm going to eat. So when we eat together, I don't look like a caveman eating 2, 3, 4 pounds of meat in one sitting. That way I could have just 2 pounds, which is still pretty impressive to a lot of people. And occasionally, if I meet anyone adventurous, I may bring along an iguana or duck or something to cook up. Sometimes we can make some heart attack foods. We'll make some heart attack chicken or iguana, or maybe we can make some pork chops or pork roast. And really, I don't drink. I don't have sodas. All I drink is water. I eat meat. And we do really well. Everyone enjoys the barbecue. They enjoy their foods. I enjoy mine. There's no issue. So for me, it's not a problem because the thing is, I don't want to eat that stuff. To me, it's all duck food. They can eat my food. That's fine as long as there's enough of it there. So there's no conflict. I think it works really well because when it comes dessert time, I won't even touch the stuff. And they can go and they can gorge on the key lime pie or the cake or whatever else they want to eat, pumpkin pie. And I'll just sit there, whatever leftover meats there are, because there's usually 2 or 3 leftover meats, I'll hit those. And that's it. And we talk, and, a lot of times we'll laugh. People will comment about me, somebody new comes around. Oh, you'll never guess how old this guy is. Oh, what is he, 40, 45? Nope, not even close. No one's ever been able to guess my age. Right, little guy? So it's fun. The social situations are pretty awesome. And since I'm an oddball in many other ways, people see my old car or see the way that I dress or comb my hair, and they think it's like a time traveler or whatever. So it turns into a lot of fun. When you invite Rick to your event, it's always a memorable occasion. It's never going to be routine. So that's what I deal with.
And I would like to add that heart attack chicken is delicious. Rick is the master of it, and because he didn't explain what it was, but it is chicken or iguana or whatever your meat of choice is, fried in beef tallow or lard. Right, Rick? Did I get that right?
That's it.
Yes.
That's how you get fat is flavor. So even if you use meat that's not that great, use that animal fat. That's what you want.
Yeah, and everyone at my house loves the heart attack chicken there. So just wanted to plug that. Okay. So social situations. When I first started Carnivore, which was June of 2023, I wondered if it would be, weird. Especially going to family. If you haven't told them you're carnivore, the cat's going to be out of the bag, so to speak. Sorry, Milton, for the metaphor there. But it didn't take them very long to get used to it. And what I sort of did, it kind of depends on the social situation. So if it's a family gathering where we're gathering for a holiday at someone's house, I just offered to bring something. And so my go-to move, the easiest thing, is a charcuterie, because everyone loves that. Even the non-carnivores seem to love that. And I just fill it with all kinds of usually meats and cheeses. And then, or I've brought picanha a couple of times, and nobody ever turns that down either. So yeah, when it's a family gathering, those are the two things I'll usually offer to bring. Our Thanksgiving is already planned, and that's what I'll be bringing a picanha again, like I did last year. It was a hit. There was like 0 picanha left. There was a ton of turkey left, but there was no picanha left. So that's what I do there. And the family doesn't take that long to get used to it. It's fine. And now that my son's carnivore, they just know they better have a lot of meat there. I'll back up a second. The reason I thought to bring picanha in the first place was we were going to my in-laws' house and they knew I was carnivore, but a lot of people don't know the exact ins and outs, right? So they're like, we're serving ham. And I'm like, what kind of ham? And they're like, honey baked ham. And I'm like, no, thank you. And so then I was like, how about I bring a picanha? And then that's all good. And, my mother-in-law wasn't offended or anything. Everybody that wanted the ham ate that. Some people had a little of both. My son and I had picanha. So that's kind of where that came from. And I thought, well, that worked out nicely. And so now it's just kind of what I do. If it's a restaurant, sometimes, we'll meet up at a restaurant for something. And I always look at the menu, like, especially if it's a place I haven't been. It's very easy to find menus online, obviously. And so I just go and try to find something. And there's always something I can find. There was only one time, it was for my son's birthday, and we went to the restaurant that he wanted to go to. And it was before, it was my son that isn't carnivore. And so he picked Cheesecake Factory. And so I looked at the menu, and like my first thought was, okay, they have like an Alfredo. And I was like, I can do like the Alfredo sauce and some chicken. But I investigated, like I called the restaurant, and yeah, sure enough, that Alfredo sauce, it was partially pre-made and it had seed oils. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I know, look at Rick. He's like, no. I'm like, that's not even Alfredo sauce anymore. So, they have a steak, but it's very expensive and that's not really their thing. And I just knew it wasn't going to be very big, and it was whatever, $40-$50 or whatever it was. I don't know. So that day I ended up just eating before I went and then drinking some water, and they had butter that was real butter. So I just did my little bite butter. I love a good bite butter. I just ate a couple little cubes of butter and drank water. And my father-in-law, I'm pretty sure, thought I was odd. That was the first time I think he'd seen anyone do that, but it's okay. I was there to socialize. I was there to celebrate my son's birthday. I was not there for eating. So it was fine. My mom was there. My father-in-law was there. My mother-in-law was there, and my kids were there. And we had a great time chatting. So but usually I can find something. When I'm hanging out with my carnivore friends like Nia and John, I got to hang out with them. That's the best because then we pick restaurants that really suit us. The two of my favorites are Korean barbecue. I'll shout that out first because Nia introduced me to that. It was great. Oh my gosh. It's like they just keep bringing the meat. We requested butter. We were able to cook it in butter instead of oil.
Milton.
And of course, the Brazilian steakhouse. That is just delicious. So if I'm with other carnivores, we'll always go to one of those two places. And then that is like super easy. Otherwise, you can always find a burger patty, right, Cammie? They're pretty much everywhere. That's pretty easy to find. And then in other situations like, work situations or things like that, it just depends. They really do try at my school to sort of accommodate me, and they usually aren't, sometimes they fail because they get things with sauce, like meat with sauce all over it or that kind of stuff. It's on the side and I'm like, okay, you tried and I appreciate it. But it is easy for me on carnivore to skip a meal. It's really not a problem. If I have to do it, I might be hungry, but I'm not hangry. I can deal with it. And the last one I'll talk about is weddings. Oddly enough, I hadn't been to a wedding in years, like years and years, maybe a decade. I don't know, a long time. But after I went carnivore, I was invited to 2 weddings, like in that short span of time. And yeah, both times I was able to ask about the menu. Neither menu had anything that I would want to eat. And so, yeah, I just ate before I went and I made sure I was really full. One of the weddings was my aunt's wedding and it lasted a really long time. And then we had a long drive home. So that was the first time I tried the McDonald's burger patty thing. And sure enough, I did find a McDonald's where they were like $1.20 a patty. So I was able to get some burger patties to tide me over after that. So that worked out well. The other wedding was short and I just hung out at the table. I don't think anyone really noticed I wasn't even eating. I don't think anyone cared or noticed. Nobody said anything to me. And it was a table full, but it was mostly people I didn't know with like 1 or 2 people I did know. But yeah, nobody said anything. I just sat there sipping my water and chatting with me, making new friends, the people sitting around me. And yeah, it was good. So the nervousness that I had at the beginning of carnivore has totally gone away. I'm not worried about social situations anymore. I've been through over a year now. So like the annual cycle of, the holidays and birthdays and all those things, I've been through all of those at least once and some of them twice now. So it does get easier with time.
Hi. So I think with social situations, there are kind of 3 options. You either eat before you go, you take something you want to eat with you, or you kind of just take your chances when you get where you're going. And the third choice kind of sets you up to struggle and fail if you don't plan ahead. I like eating before I go, and I like taking something that I want to eat. I take pork rinds because it's almost like a popcorn or a chip. It's a really good substitute for that. So I like taking pork rinds. I don't know if they're good for me, but some of them are cooked in seed oil, so you have to check the package and make sure that yours are just cooked in pork fat. I actually find making my food choices in a social situation to be easier because I feel like people are watching what you're doing. And so you want to be a good example of a carnivore. And so sometimes at home when no one's watching you, I find that to be harder sometimes than being out in public. Because I don't know, I like being around people and I kind of like having them ask questions about what I'm doing. And so for me, it's really easy to be strong in a public setting. I don't know. I think it can be hard though, because they're going to bring a lot of delicious foods that you aren't seeing on a day-to-day basis. That can kind of test your will, but I know that this is the healthiest thing and I see how sick my friends are. And so when I see them eating those things, it makes it easier to go, I definitely don't want that. I don't want to have what you're dealing with. I left that behind. I'm on that path to healing and I don't want to take a step back. So that's my part.
Awesome. Yeah, I would echo everything that you all said. And my biggest secret weapon for all this stuff is honestly to eat before. I find that to be the most effective if I know I'm going to be somewhere where there's not going to be anything I can eat, which that actually happened to me recently while I was out of town in Wisconsin. And so we stopped and visited somebody, and I knew there was going to be nothing there that I could eat. So I just kind of made sure that I wasn't hungry before. And I always bring jerky with me everywhere if I'm going places like that. You know, like a lot of people do purse bacon or pork rinds, or like Cami mentioned, or something like that. I love jerky, and I make it at home, just with salt, you know, very clean. And so I'll usually throw that in my backpack or something, just to have something just in case there's something that I can't, just to have something in case there's nothing that I can eat at that particular place. And holidays can be a little bit tricky. We, like last year, we just had Thanksgiving and Christmas, I think, at home. And I think we had a couple people over for Christmas. So it wasn't like a huge gathering where, you know, there was a whole lot of extra stuff. However, I did for Christmas, I bought some cookies and bought some, you know, other things that to be available for other people that would be there. But so that was a little bit, you know, you're not used to going out and buying that stuff or preparing any of it. So that can be a little bit triggering sometimes. But really, I think, yeah, this time of year going into the holidays where there's like max emotion and then there's max temptation, I think, I don't know, I still feel like I could potentially struggle with that sometimes. And I don't know if it's specifically because like I don't feel like I want the food, but there is still that emotional component. And I think it's something that is good to drill down on if you feel like there's some apprehension around this, like, will I, you know, stick to my plan, or will I kind of go off plan? And I think for me, there is that sort of emotional thing where you just kind of want to be carefree, and you kind of want to be like, oh, it's not a big deal, you know, and that those thoughts still come in sometimes for me, or those feelings like, oh, everyone else is just chilling, and, you know, there's music, and it's like, it's just this relaxed vibe that, again, we're not in all the time. And it makes you kind of be like, yeah, you know, what's a bite here or there, not a big deal. And maybe for some people it isn't a big deal, but for others of us, myself included, that I definitely still feel like that has the potential to spiral into something that I don't want to turn into. And so I think sitting down and coming up with a list of like, what are the triggers that I think are still potentially there for me, whether it's the food specifically, or a certain type of food that you know is going to be there, or if it's more emotional reasons, or if you feel pressured by other people, maybe you're just getting into this and you're like, you know, I've only been on it for 3 months and now I got to go through all these, you know, a work meeting and a family outing and all this kind of stuff. So really drilling down into what specific triggers you think might be a problem, and then coming up with a strategy to work with those so that you can be successful. And, you know, I don't think everybody has to be 100% perfect with this all the time too, but there again, if you're struggling with health goals, or you don't want to slip backwards and you feel like having a bite or having a sip of something can do that, then it's really important to put strategies in place. So I'd say for me, the biggest ones are just acknowledging those emotional cues beforehand. So I know, okay, here's how I'm going to think about these or approach these when they probably come up. Once I get to the situation, I will oftentimes do visualization. I know I'm getting off on a tangent here, but like, you can actually close your eyes and kind of walk yourself through being in that situation beforehand and making the choices that you want to make. And you can practice that and rehearse it in your mind. And that actually will show up in your behavior. It'll be easier because it's like, oh, I've already trained myself to react or respond this way in that situation. So I will do things like that, and then make sure I'm not hungry when I get there. And then, like everybody else mentioned, bring something suitable that I know I can eat and share with others. So those are my thoughts.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I have a lot to say on this topic. As you can see, I put Ian's comment up there. That's one way to handle if you're afraid you're going to eat too much or be tempted, is you can fast. I don't know about anybody here, but I've done 3-day fast, 2-day fasts. I fast every day from dinner the night before until my first meal of the day, which is around noon. So it's a no-brainer to go to an event and just not eat if you have to. So that absolutely does work. When I go to parties and they ask us to bring food, I will bring hard-boiled eggs, or I'll bring deviled eggs, and I make the deviled eggs with mayonnaise that I make with baking fat. You mix it in there with the egg yolks. I bring like picanha sliced up, like Christy talked about, cook it on the grill. It cools down, I slice it up, I bring it in strips, and people go crazy over it. People who aren't even carnivore, they think it's like the best thing at the party. Or I'll do a skirt steak, or a, what else is it called? Or a flank steak. I'll cut that up, get some sliced cheeses. So I bring a plate of something. It's probably the best thing that anybody else brings, to be honest with you. And it's almost always ravaged. I'm not the only one eating it. Everybody else is going crazy over this wonderful meat and eggs and cut up cheeses and everything. Absolutely delicious. When I first started and I would go to parties, I really had no problem doing this. But the questions did start to come, and the food was all there, and you had to parse through it if you didn't bring your own to find the meat and the cheese and the eggs. And it's a great opportunity to have a conversation if they bring it up. So if they're bringing it up, like, why aren't you having this? Or I heard that you don't eat any bread. Talk to me about keto, and so I'll discuss what a ketogenic diet, what a state of being in ketogenesis is. And I take it from there, and I kind of look forward to these now, whereas before, I used to think, oh, I hope nobody talks to me about this. I was afraid. But I've been doing this for a while, and I feel pretty comfortable sharing. And a lot of the places I go now that I've been doing this almost 6 years, people know who I am, and they know my diet, and they know what I'm going to bring, and they know that I stay away from all that stuff. Last Christmas, we were invited to a neighbor's house. The neighbor had moved into a beautiful new condo east of here and invited us to their new place. So we went, and I made carnivore lasagna, and that's egg whites and all the meats and cheese, and it was absolutely delicious. And it just all melts together, a little salt, and people dug into it and absolutely loved it. And that's what I ate the whole time. Then somebody put down right in front of my face this huge tray of Christmas cookies and desserts right in front of me. And the old John would have had about 10 of those, literally. Maybe would have had 3 here and 3 there, so people didn't think I was having a problem with it. But I would have had about 10 cookies or cupcakes or pies or whatever it was, because that's my addiction. And I thought, I can handle this. So I'm sitting at the table, and it's there, and I'm having a conversation with everybody around the table, and it's in my peripheral vision the whole time, and I'm smelling it too. And I thought, all right, I have to get up and go sit somewhere else, because I wasn't going to, my brain, my mind was stronger than my 6 or 7 seconds of I want that sweet, delicious taste. I mean, I'm fine with that, but I was feeling tempted because it was just there. And the olfactory sense was going in my nose, and I could see it. So I physically put myself in another part of the party, away from it. So another way to if you're being tempted, is to put yourself away from it. Get away from it. Birthday parties, when they hand out the birthday cake and everybody has a piece of birthday cake and we sing happy birthday, I will hold the plate. I'll take the cake with the plastic fork, and we're all singing happy birthday. They cut it, they sing it, they hand it out, and then I just go put it down somewhere. Nobody knows you weren't eating. Nobody knows this. I think Christy mentioned this, that people really aren't watching you and thinking, what's wrong with this person? They're busy with their own conversation and talking and having fun. And a lot of people don't really care if you're either drinking alcohol or eating the cake or having the bread or the dips or whatever. So I found that it's actually pretty easy. I find that it's easy when I bring my own foods. I also heard the suggestion, eat before you go. I've done that too, where I'll have a good heavy meat-based meal like I normally have, and then go to the party. And then even if I eat there, it's going to be a little bit because I'm not hungry. And it makes the sweet stuff that I was addicted to less tempting. But I'll still put myself out of the room. Let's see, what else did I want to share? So holidays, restaurants. When I go to a restaurant, I'm going to go to one tomorrow and one Friday, actually. Tomorrow it's at 1 o'clock. And I'm doing 2 birthdays. Actually, it's 3 events. I have a birthday party tomorrow, a birthday after I get back from the thing on Friday, and the Friday meetup. So tomorrow it's at 1, and it's going to be at Miller Ale House over here near me on Glades Road in Boca. And I already know what to order because I know that menu. I'm going to ask them for a ribeye. I'm going to tell them I want them to not put it in the seed oil. They put it in a separate pan in the oven. They do that for me. They know me. I bring my own ghee, salt, and I have a wonderful ribeye steak whenever I eat there. And they're going to get whatever they're going to get, and they know me. After the meetup on Friday is another birthday party. That's going to be a lot of people, and that's later in the evening. And I'm going to do what I said earlier. We're going to bring some food, and I'm going to bring my gift for the person. And I don't fear these things anymore like I used to, because I find them actually very enjoyable. And I'm hoping someone will want to talk, because I get excited and I light up when they want to talk to me about my carnivore way of eating, because it's done so many wonderful things for me that I do love to talk about it. So that's my spiel. My next question for everybody to go around is, okay, you've been to one of these gatherings, and do you ever have a temptation? Have you ever fallen off the wagon? Have you had a setback? Did you dive into some of the snacks or the treats or the bread or the dip? I never have, but I know a lot of people who have. And how do you deal with that? Now, Rick, we're starting with you first, so it's a different answer, but go ahead.
You have a pretty good idea what my answer would be.
I do.
You know, that would be like telling somebody, there's some rotten food in the garbage can. Would you like to try that? Like, absolutely not. There's maggots on that, roaches. That's what I see when I see that stuff. It's just,
Well, the bug people do like those maggots and roaches.
well, hey, I've eaten a few bugs myself. I've eaten grubs, and I've also eaten snails.
Is the snail considered a bug?
Well, it's not really a bug. It's a mollusk.
I love them. They're good.
I've had people tell me,
Delicacy.
escargot. I've had people say, "Oh, I went to the French restaurant. I had escargot." I'm like, "Yeah, I had escargot. I just picked up some snails from my yard, and I purged them for a few days, and I cooked them up." And like, ew, snails. I said, it's the same thing. Escargot is snail in French, but I've been to these get-togethers, and again, you see the sweet potatoes, you see the pasta and all that stuff, and all I can think about is something that has a web foot and a waggly tail and makes funny noises. That's what I think about. I don't see that stuff as being exciting in any way. I'm trying to think if there's any non-carnivore food I've ever liked. I do like popcorn, but the problem is I can only eat about 2 handfuls, and then I've totally lost interest. I don't want to eat anymore. And that's my popcorn. I've eaten popcorn from other places. We used to have office parties. I don't know what kind of popcorn it was, but as soon as I started to eat it, it made my mouth burn. There was something in that popcorn, and I spit it out. And then another time I ate it, it made me cough. I just kept coughing and coughing. I don't know what it was. And they said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I don't know. I tried the popcorn, but I can't eat it." Because I get teased a lot. It could be, and I had a friend give me some chicken last week, and I found out later his daughter cooked it. Now, I taught him how to make heart attack chicken, but evidently his daughter used canola oil, and he didn't know about it. Yeah. So I ate the chicken. I felt fine. It didn't taste that great. I was going to tell him, well, this chicken doesn't have any flavor. But the thing was that the next day I had violent diarrhea, and I had stomach pain. I'm like, what is that? And I said, there's something wrong with your chicken. He says, no, I ate it. It's not contaminated. And then I asked how it was cooked, and I said, you cook it? He said, no, my daughter cooked it. What'd you cook it in? Canola oil. Oh, that's what it was. So, even if there was something there that might be tempting, like some delicious meat, and I've had meats offered to me, but then they use some kind of spice that doesn't agree with me, and again, I I don't have a problem with pepper. Obviously, salt doesn't bother me, and mustard does not bother me. For some reason, even though it has turmeric in it, it doesn't bother me at all. But if somebody puts some kind of ketchup or some kind of steak sauce, from the first time I taste it, it makes me want to vomit. I actually did.
Hmm.
It's embarrassing. Somebody gave me a really nice hamburger, and it was like a burger bowl, but they put some kind of sauce in it. And I started eating it, and I started feeling kind of like queasy. And I had to run outside, and I threw up.
Wow.
It's like, what was that? I said, I don't know. I don't feel good. But then the funny thing was that after a few minutes, I started feeling better. And then when I had a regular burger, I was fine. So I had to investigate. I said, what did you put in that burger bowl? Well, I put some, I put the burger, I put some cheese. Okay, that's good. What kind of cheese did you use? I used mozzarella. Okay, that's fine. Because I can't eat that cheese that comes in plastic. The yellow stuff, that stuff tastes awful, and it doesn't agree with me. It gives me a stomach ache. The singles or whatever they call that garbage. But I
That's
like hard
cheese
cheese.
product. That's not even,
Cheese,
it's like 49% or 50% cheese, and the rest is seed oil, is what it is.
and it's awful. And the
Yeah.
thing is that it melts. It looks like axle grease or something. It doesn't look like food. Let's put it that way. It has an unnatural color. And the thing is, I love cheese. When you talk about the charcuterie board, they have the little meats and cheeses. I go for that.
Yeah.
I'll knock that whole thing out. They'll bring me that. A lot of times they have it in like a glass bowl, and I start snacking on that before the meal. I've eaten the whole thing, and then comes the steak. And a lot of times that doesn't get a lot of interest. They seem to go for the chips. That seems to be the popular thing.
Yeah.
So they bring out the chips, they hit those, and then the charcuterie board, they may pick away at that, but that usually gets pushed to me, and I'll eat that. But there's nothing really at any of these events that I want. The spaghetti and meatballs, I've taken the meatballs out of it, and then I just save the spaghetti for the ducks. It's like you were saying, you pick out the little things that you can eat. They also used to have these like rice and shrimp things, some kind of Asian style, whatever, and I pick the shrimp out of there and then leave the rice behind. So a lot of times we'll have one of those buffet tables where you have all these different foods that people bring in, and I'll go there and pick out the meats. It's like, oh, Rick's fishing again. What are you hunting for this time? They even joke, there's no iguana in there. You won't find a duck in there. Okay, that's fine. But I just can't think of anything that would be a temptation. You know what I mean? Nothing. Even the stuff that I don't mind eating, like the plantains and the popcorn, I can only eat a few of them before I get bored with it. I just don't, it doesn't excite me. Now, if you give me a 4-pound chuck roll that you roasted, I'll knock that whole thing out. And the same thing like with turkey. Baked turkey, it doesn't excite me. But if it's fried in lard or tallow, I'll knock that turkey out like you wouldn't believe. So it really comes down to taste. My cat is chewing on my microphone cord. Stop that. This animal, I'm telling you. And he eats raw meat. So this is the other thing that people have told me. You have to eat carbs for energy. Well, explain the kitten, because this thing will not stop no matter what I do. So, but anyway, that's my experience with temptation.
All right.
Yeah, so you guys can decide if you feel like I caved or didn't cave in these situations. So it was last holidays, and my aunt had known, because I didn't go, similar to John, although for not as the same amount of time. I went keto first, so I was keto from like February to about June, and so my aunt knew that I had gone keto, and she knew that my mom had too. And so when Thanksgiving came and she's in charge of desserts, it was very kind of her. She made a keto cheesecake. And by then I was carnivore, but what I decided to do was I ate the middle part of the cheesecake. So the crust, she had used almond flour, and I was like, yeah, no, thank you. So I just put the crust to the side and I ate the middle of that cheesecake. And it was a choice. It wasn't like, it was a choice. It wasn't, oh, it's sitting there and, oh, I'm so tempted. It was like, I'm going to eat some of my aunt's cake and I'm just not going to eat the crust. It was a decision. And it was delicious. And what was in there was some cream cheese and some eggs. And there was like a sweetener in there, like not sugar, but a non-nutrient. I think it was Swerve, or I don't know what she used, something like that. And so I had one slice of that cake. And the cool thing was I was good with that. I didn't take the rest home with me or anything like that. And then it was kind of similar at Christmas. So those 2 times I decided to do that. And if she brings that cake again this Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'll probably do the same thing again.
Oh.
You know, because it's not, if it was some other kind of pie or sugary thing, like full of sugar or whatever, I would definitely not do it. But you know, she went out of her way to make that for me. Cheesecake has always been one of my favorites, and I made the decision to do that. But I haven't had that since last December, so it's been almost a year, and I only think about it in these types of conversations. So it's kind of cool how I was able to do that. And then just the other day, I told this story on another live stream just very recently. But yeah, my teacher, my partner teacher across the hall from me was teaching this kids a lesson, a language arts lesson. And they were talking about things she was teaching them inferencing and talking about things you could grow in a garden that could go on a burger. And some kids said pickles. And then their big fight ensued about, you can't grow pickles. It was like this whole thing. You can't grow pickles. These kids were saying. So John knows very well what my teacher across the hall went and did. She went and made pickles that night. John, like 4 gallon-sized bags of pickles. And she brought those pickles in. And so I did.
Did she do a pickle lesson? Did she do a whole lesson on how to make pickles from cucumbers?
She did do a pickle lesson, but she didn't pickle them right in front of the kids. But she brought the pickles in. She got parent permission. She let them taste these pickles that she had made. And I just had to taste her homemade pickles. So she brought me like a little bowl. There was probably 6 or 7 like pickle chips. Like the little round, not like whole pickles, but the little pickle chips. Mm-hmm. So yes, I ate them because I was curious to see what homemade pickles tasted like. And they were very good. Yeah. So that's it. Other than that, I can't think of another social situation where I've eaten something that wasn't, totally carnivore. I mean, I guess from time I've had an avocado like on a burger here or there. Mm-hmm. Again, as a choice, super rare, more rare than the pickles. I think occasionally I'll have pickles, but that's about the extent of it. How about you, Cammie?
I used to think I was pretty hardcore, but compared to Rick, I'm not hardcore at all. But from like when I started in March to like November last year, I was really strict. I wasn't doing cheese. I wasn't doing dairy at all. It was just like meat and fat, and that was pretty much it. And then for my birthday in November, I thought I will have a little piece of chocolate. So I ate like 1 piece of chocolate, and it kind of just opened up that door and made it easier to make little other choices, right? So then at Thanksgiving, like a couple days later, there was some sugar-free pie. Well, that just meant they didn't add sugar, but it was, still made out of things that are sugary. And so I wasn't really thinking about it like that. And I had that. And again, it just kind of brings back all those cravings. And so I just have really struggled ever since then. I've added in cheese, and it just let the door, it just kind of creeps. I don't know, like the line, you kind of cross the line and then you draw a new line, and then you kind of cross that and draw a new line. So I'm going to try and just make a new line, like no more little, I can't think, just compromises. No more little compromises. I need to draw a line and decide where that's going to be, and then just really stick with it. But like I said, it's easier for me in public, in social situations, than it is at home. Like in the car today, the guy I work with, he opens up his little Tupperware, and his wife has made no-bake cookies for him. And I immediately went back to high school when me and my friends would get together and make no-bake cookies. And I wanted the relationships that I had with the no-bake cookies more than I wanted the cookies themselves. And then I thought of, I'm not making those things with my daughter. So I thought of, well, how am I recreating those experiences with my daughter? Like, there's so many things to think about around food. Like, we just don't appreciate how much food is part of every memory that we have. So I like what Nia said about just kind of thinking through those things, examining the emotions that we have around those foods also. But yes, I have caved, and I wish I hadn't. I wish I hadn't caved and had the sugar-free pies. I wish I hadn't started back then. I wish I was stayed stronger.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I can relate to all of that.
Done. Bad.
Yeah, for me it was last Christmas too. I talked about how I bought some, extra things, and I'm like you, Cammie. It's easier for me to play it cool in public, and then it's like when everybody leaves and I have that sort of introvert hangover type of thing. That's when I feel like, oh, I'm alone, nobody's here, but all these cookies got left over. You know what I mean? And so last year, that's what I did. I thought, oh, I could have, one of these, but then it turned into more than one. And so, like Christy said too, it was sort of a decision in a way, because I'm curious AF, and that's probably, curiosity killed the cat. Sorry, Milton, but that's kind of how I've played a lot over the years, and it, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. But I always want to know, I'm like, is it going to trigger me? Is it going to, I've done that with alcohol too, where it's like, can I just have one glass now? And with that experience, that was the case, where kind of like how Christy mentioned, it was like, yeah, you sort of forget about it until you get asked and you think about it again in conversation. And like for the glass of wine thing, that was my experience, but the food is different. And I still feel like I could tell, like if I think about being confronted with food, I know right away it's like, nope, abstinence is the only thing, because I know that it'll trigger me. And so my plan going into the holidays is to not, and there, I may try to do like a carnivore cheesecake or something like that. That might be like a little treat, even because I'm not doing dairy right now either, or butter. So I'm pretty limited in what I do. So like I may make like a small exception like that, but with no sweetener, like just egg and cream cheese or whatever. We'll see. But yeah, I think I definitely learned from that situation last year, because I kind of know the mindset that I was in, and it was like, let's test this. And then it didn't go the way that I wanted it to. And it's hard to recover from that mentally too. And so I would just rather not experience that this time around. And so I kind of know it's like, oh, if I feel like this could be an issue, then I'm going to call it. I'm going to draw my line right there. So yeah, that's my experience.
Okay. Mine was Rebel ice cream. All right. If you've ever seen the Rebel ice cream in the grocery store, this was back when I started. I was doing keto and I was doing really well. And I learned through some of the influencers that if you're going to have a cheat meal, you cheat with keto stuff. So I bought Rebel ice cream and I ate the whole thing. All right. And then it made me get another one and another one. And I was doing them too much. And it's like, I can't, I'm such an addict. I can't do this. So I learned through my past life when I ate the standard American diet. And then when I started going keto, that I can't do it. I have to be like Cammie. I have to go 100%, or I can't do it. If I let if I give myself permission to have 1%, just a teeny little taste, it opens the door. And that's how my brain is as well. I'm an all or nothing at all. So when I go to gatherings or anywhere, or even in my own house, I have nothing in my house to tempt me, so I can't be tempted. And I make sure I don't buy anything. 100% is no and never all the time. And then I don't have to think about it. And it's really, really easy. But if I just have a taste of something that somebody made that has a little bit of monk fruit in it, so even though it's not a glycemic index raiser, it turns on my sweet switch, and I'm like, oh wow, that was amazing. And then even if I only had that little bit, I can't stop thinking about it. It makes me bargain with myself. I'm going to go get something, like I'm going to think about buying something at the store and make my own, but I'll control it. I'll only have it once a day. And I've been through that when I was keto years ago. I'm not going to do that to myself. So I've learned that I can't do it. When talking to a lot of people, there's either moderators or abstainers. And I don't understand moderators. I honestly think that maybe they're not being honest with themselves. Are they really able to moderate? and have just a little bit and then not have any more for the rest of the year.
So Milton.
I can't do that. I'm 100% an abstainer, and it works for me. So I've had really good success with 100% abstain. When I go to parties and I go anywhere, like I mentioned earlier at that party, when they put the tray of the most decadent Christmas desserts in front of me, I sat there for a while with it in front of me, and I saw it and I smelled it, and I had to get up and walk away. That's how I also handled 100%. Don't be around it as well. Put yourself in an environment that is, conducive to your lifestyle. Don't put yourself, like an alcoholic shouldn't be sitting in a bar. All right. If a person has quit smoking, they shouldn't be around people who smoke. It's the same concept. You don't want to put that little bit of temptation in there because it just might push you over. Cammie mentioned the memories. We have memories. I have a lot of wonderful memories with a lot of great tasting foods. And then when those holidays come around and those foods, I see them at gatherings, even though I can abstain, the memories pop into my head because the sense of smell is the strongest memory recaller in the brain of all these 5 senses. The sense of smell brings back vibrant, happy memories, delicious memories, and that pushes you into possibly falling off the wagon and having a little bit of that. So I've learned to know that, knowledge is power. Just understand that you're gonna see that stuff and you're gonna smell that stuff, and the memories are gonna come back, and it's just not worth it. Rick mentioned that he didn't even know when he put something that was bad in his mouth. He didn't know that chicken was fried in seed oil until he felt really sick and had diarrhea or whatever it was. Sometimes people will test themselves or will have something they're not supposed to have, and then they pay the price with either feeling nauseous or achy or diarrhea or something, and that kind of like is a lesson. All right, I made that mistake, and that taught me a lesson. Now I'm really not going to do it next time. So sometimes when we have these mistakes, we should look at them as lessons that make us stronger. So I'm totally not going to do the same thing I just did. I'm not going to do that again because I messed up once. I'm not going to mess up again. So those are my thoughts on that with mistakes. Anybody else have anything they would like to share related to social events, holidays? What's coming up is Halloween. Christy, what I used to do when Halloween was over, any holiday was over, I would go to Walgreens because 2 days, 3 days later, all the candy was on sale. It was half off, sometimes 70% off. So I'd fill the basket with all the crap, and I would take it into school and I would use it as bribes and everything for the kids. I cringe now that I used to feed these children sugar to bribe them and reward them. But then, of course, I always dipped into it too. I had the big stash in my drawer, and when it was planning period and the kids weren't in the room, I had about 5 or 6 of them. It's terrible. I was such a sugar addict. So the sugar holidays start, right? They're starting now. And a lot of people find this very, very tempting and difficult. And I guess everybody has to find what works best for them. For me, it's 100% abstention. And then I don't have to think about it. For me. Anybody else have any other thoughts?
I totally used to do that too in my classroom, and I've switched to where I'll do, because for 5th graders, it's like a super big deal because the school rule is you're not supposed to be chewing gum. So I'll give them sugar-free gum and say, you can chew this sugar-free gum in my class. Instead of, it's a lot better than giving them chocolate, I feel, or Jolly Ranchers or whatever. So I started doing that instead, and not every day, but I just mean like if a group wins the point competition or things like that, I'll let them chew gum in class for that class period. And like I said, it's sugar-free gum. And so, yeah, they like that pretty much just as much. And then I've started doing other different rewards, like you can sit next to your friend for a day, or, extra recess for 10 minutes or that kind of thing, instead of the sugary rewards. And I meant to say this during my long spiel, but this is kind of a funny story. So when my son was graduating high school and I had just gone carnivore, it was at my house, right? I was serving the stuff, and it was the day of the graduation. So it wasn't the party. Not everybody came to the graduation ceremony because they ration out those tickets. You only get so many. So it was just like my family here, and then my mom and my in-laws. So 3 extra people, basically. And I just made carnivore food. And my in-laws, what they decided to do was go to a restaurant. So they left. They didn't eat my ribs and my charcuterie. That was fine. It didn't offend me at all. They wanted what they wanted. They went and did that. They they just said, we'll just go do this, and then we'll, head over. Both my sons graduated on the same day, one promoted from 8th grade and then one high school graduation. So it was kind of, they were at our house. Everyone was at my house all day because it was 8th grade in the morning and then high school at night. So it's kind of a big day. But yeah, they just decided that they wanted to have their whatever they wanted to have, and they went and got that, and it all worked out. It was fine. But so it can work in reverse too, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it can. It can. Another thing I used to do is I would reward the kids later on when I became keto and carnivore. I would reward the kids. They valued middle school kids valued free time. I would take a Friday, and kids earned a free time that they could get on their phones. I mean, that was the biggest reward in the world to these kids, more than candy, was to be able to go on their phone. So, we as teachers, we used anything we could to motivate them and reward them and get them to do what we want them to do. Yeah. Anybody else have any last thoughts you'd like to share?
Stick with community during this time. That's the biggest thing. There's so many live streams. There's so many people, putting these things together to help everybody stay supported. And if you go into something and your intention is to abstain and you end up slipping up, just like we always talk about, the next meal, the next day, we're getting back on plan. We come into this with experience. We're going to use these things to grow and understand ourselves better. So those are opportunities to learn about what these triggers are, what they really mean. A lot of these are emotional in nature. And so those can be blind spots for us sometimes. And that's why you can feel sometimes this loss of control, or this sense of I don't know why I did that, because there's something deeper that needs to be looked at. So, no matter what happens, we can always learn from it. And there's community here to support you. And we all love to participate in that. So.
That's important. That was our talk last Thursday night, was community. And that was so helpful that Thursday night, because that's an excellent point. Anybody else have a last minute before we do our rounds here?
Well, I'm a bad example because none of this stuff is a temptation for me, and I'm the oddball of the group. I've never been drunk in my life. I never smoked a cigarette. I'm about as close to, I guess, a priest or nun as you could get, because I just don't get tempted. But I just try to remind myself. I said, well, when I go to the back of the store and I go to the meat section, or I go to a butcher shop, I get these intense cravings for food. The butcher shop is the worst. They have one here called the Meat Place. And I go in there and I see all those different cuts of meat. It is impossible for me to leave that place without spending my last dollar on something. So I just have to take that experience that I have and put it into all these other things that I consider duck food. So I have to think about it. If I was a regular person and I saw the duck food, it would probably do the same thing to me. And it's also been a good education when I go to the store, because obviously I always think about the grocery store as the back and the side. You got the produce section and you got the meat section. I never look at anything else.
Good.
But recently I've taken time to walk through the store and I look at all the different things they have. They have all these colorful packages. To me, it looked like just like a structure. It doesn't look like food. This looks like the side of a building. But then I look at it and I watch the people, what they buy. I look in their carts, and I'm starting to get a better understanding of what's going on. So for anybody that has an addiction, I think the best thing you could do is to try to, like what you've done, reflect on what your triggers are, and maybe look at what some of the other people are doing. Because once you get outside of this, I think once you've hit the carnivore lifestyle and you're no longer a duck food eater, then you're probably going to look at things a little bit differently. You won't be as extreme as me. I don't think anyone's as extreme as me. But the thing is, even if I ate some fruit or vegetables from my own yard, that doesn't tempt me to eat anymore. I go out there and eat a few bananas, I have no temptation. But I have to remember, for the average person, anything sweet could set them off. I have a friend that tried a keto diet, and every time he had something sweet, it set him off. Didn't matter if it was some processed food or if it was a natural fruit. If it was sweet, it did the trick. And as you mentioned about the monk fruit, that's a melon. You know, that's an extract from that. People try to use stevia and all these other things. And then next thing you know, it's like, well, if I can eat this, I might as well just eat the real thing. And then they're down there in the duck pond with the ducks gobbling away. They're eating up all the bread and so on. So that's just my thought. So I have to remember, I'm not the typical person. And just because I don't like something doesn't mean that other people don't like it. And again, that would like me, if I was trying to give up beef, I would go crazy. If I had to give, I'd probably have withdrawals because I have to have beef every day. Otherwise, I start to lose it. I mean, even chicken and iguana won't do it. The only substitute is Muscovy duck because it tastes like beef.
Does it? Oh.
Yeah, it does. It's actually very good. If you cook it in beef tallow, you can't tell the difference between Muscovy duck and a steak.
We have a lot of ducks in our neighborhood now. I look at them so very differently as I drive by. Thanks to you, Rick.
They are very tasty.
Muscovy, I kind of like I could see them all, and I think if you
and they're fun too once you get used to them. If you want to take some time and feed them, they can actually be quite friendly.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for coming on. I hope that anybody who was watching learned something they didn't know, or they picked up something they didn't think about. That's how I learn a lot of the things that I've learned and embraced, is I watch and listen and take things in that I never heard of before, and they hit home. I have an epiphany. And then sometimes I make a change in my life for the better, thanks to other people's knowledge. So always stay curious, everybody, and have an open mind to learning new things. We can never learn it all. There's always more to learn. Tell us about where we can find you, your channel. I'll start. I'm the Carnivore Teacher on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and a few others. And I do a lesson every day. I do a song every Wednesday that's related to carnivore. And I do these on Wednesday nights, and I show up on a few other people's live streams, like Nia's on every other Thursday sometimes, and a few others. How about you, Rick? Tell us where we can find you.
I don't do social media. You won't find me on Instagram or Facebook. I mean, I did have a Facebook page, but I just find that a kind of a waste of time and a distraction. I do put out YouTube videos now and then. The best way to reach me would be on the Charger Mopar, which is named after my favorite cars. I'll start making videos on them hopefully soon. Or just look for the 40-Year Carnivore. There's only one of me there. I've been interviewed by some of the finest carnivore channels, and I get invited to the finest carnivore channels. So if you see me on a YouTube channel, then you know that you're on a quality carnivore channel.
Well, I'll just go right on and say I interviewed Rick. So I guess that means my channel at Meeting Wellness must be a quality carnivore channel. So thanks, Rick. I appreciate that. So yes, that is my channel, Meeting Wellness. I do all kinds of stuff over there, a lot of cooking videos, a lot of stuff about my son's transition recently from standard American diet to a carnivore diet and how that's impacted his ADHD. He's coming up on 9 months, you guys. I'm going to have to make a 9-month update pretty soon here. And then my other channel is Lioness Lifestyle, and we moved that to that show, which used to just be a live stream on our Lioness channels, because there's a few of us Lionesses. We made our own dedicated channel just for that podcast / live stream, which takes place every Tuesday at 5. So come join us over there. Subscribe over there if you haven't, because that's the only place you can see the latest episodes of Lioness Lifestyle Live. Cami?
Hi, I'm at Last Day of Normal on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not putting out a ton of new stuff right now because I'm kind of busy, but I do have some panning meat videos, how to prep some carnivore foods, and that's kind of more what I focus on. And that's it.
Okay.
And I'm Nia at Nia's Way on YouTube and Instagram, although I'm rarely ever on Instagram. My podcast channel is at Nia M. Nova for the long form content. And Rick, you got to come on. Did I not send you an invite yet?
I didn't see it.
Sometimes
Maybe.
I forget who I sent it to and who I haven't, so I'll resend it. My bad.
Excellent.
So anyway, so my channel will eventually become a quality carnivore channel after I put Rick on there. So
I think it already
I'm
is.
still in the running for that. But anyway, yeah, I love to talk about carnivore and mindset and how we think about food and all kinds of stuff. Do live streams and all that good stuff. So thanks for having me on, and enjoy hanging out with y'all.
Great. All right, everybody. We'll be back here next Wednesday. I've already come up with a topic, and that is that a snack is always an emotional event. We're going to talk about emotional, because you brought up emotions, Nia. You gave me the idea. And I have a lot that I learned about that and addiction. And so give us a week to think about that. And that's what we'll talk about next week. Everybody have a wonderful evening and eat well, as I always say, so that you can look and feel well and become the optimized version of yourself.